Hi there. In a previous video, I tested out the Llama 2 language model by Facebook, and I concluded that it was overly censored and very restricted. So, for example, if I go to my ChatWTF chatbot here, which is using the Llama 2 language model right now, and I say, tell a joke, then what it will answer me is this: I'm glad you're interested in humor. However, I must ensure that the joke I share is appropriate and respectful, and so on. So it refuses to tell jokes. But someone pointed out in the comments that if you set this system message for it, then it will actually answer your questions. And it in fact does work. But I did some digging, and in fact, there's nothing special about this particular system prompt. It's just that Facebook added a default system prompt to their GitHub repository, which they in fact 4 hours ago have deleted. So now Llama is not censored anymore. Now, in fact, it wasn't censored, the model wasn't censored from the beginning, only the repository was censored. So if you set any system message, then it would not be censored. So let me show you now. If I go to my server here, and I stop my API, and I go back to the Llama repository here, and I do git checkout dash, because I actually had to go back in the git repository to go back to the restricted version. But if I now go again to my Llama 2 Flask API, and I run the API, then we are going to run it with the latest version. So if I now go back to my ChatWTF and I start a new chat and I say, tell a joke, then now it will answer me. Sure, here's a quick one. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. I hope that brought a smile to your face. So now it actually answers properly, because there's no system message in fact. So let's now try out all of the things that I tried in the previous video. So I tried to tell a joke, and clearly it can tell a joke now. I can even say, tell a joke about Mark Zuckerberg, and it will in fact tell a joke about Mark Zuckerberg. So clearly it is not censored, although it is not very good at telling jokes. Tell another one. Of course, why did Mark Zuckerberg start a band? Because he wanted to connect with his fans. What does that mean? I hope that struck a chord with you. Okay, so let's try to write some code. So last time I said, write a hello world program in C, and it in fact refused to answer this because it was such a trivial task that it was not meaningful. But let's see if it does it now. So now we actually got a hello world program in C and really good explanation on how to build it and run it. So now it actually works. And of course, if I say that write a PHP script that prints out hello mister, because last time I said this, and it said that Mr. is not an inclusive word, so I cannot write this code. But now, of course, it will do it, and it will explain to me how to actually use the code. So let's try something else. Let's say write a Python script that prints out a specified number of Fibonacci numbers. And here we got the code, and let's take a look at this. A equals 0, B equals 1, Fibonacci is a list, and n times we are going to do this. We're going to add A to it, and we are going to set A to B, and we are going to set B to A plus B, and we are going to return fib, which is the list of the numbers. And I think it will in fact work. So let's copy this code and see if it actually works. So let's do code fib.py, and I'll paste this in here, and it should print 5 Fibonacci numbers. So let's run this Python 3 fib.py, and it actually works. Now, in fact, last time I did this in PHP and it did not make it correctly. So let's see, can you do it in PHP? Now, I'm not quite sure if the system message affects how the code is written, because there was nothing in the system message about code. It was only like, be respectful and don't be non-inclusive and stuff. But this again seems to work. Although we are not setting the two first numbers, so I think it actually might not work. So let's do code fib.php and let's paste it in there, and I have to have the starting tag, and let's run php fib.php. Actually, I don't have PHP on the server, so I will in fact do it locally, php fib.php. And what did we get? We get some very interesting looking array. So no, it does not know how to write a Fibonacci number generator in PHP. But now, since the last video, I have gotten the 13B model to work. So this is just a 7B model. Now, I had to in fact rewrite my Python Flask API for this because it didn't support the bigger models, because I didn't take into account the multi-threading nature of that. So the 7B model runs on one GPU, but the 13B model runs on 2 GPUs, and the 70B model runs on 8 GPUs. So I had to learn how to manage different GPUs to make it work. But I in fact got it to work. And if you want to see a video about that, then make sure to subscribe, because I'm going to make that next. But let's try the 13B model now. Now I have to change servers because the 13B model requires a lot more resources. Like I said, it needs 2 GPUs, and this server only has 1 GPU. So let me shut this down. And let me then start another instance. So I have a couple of different instances here. So currently we are using the Llama 2 that I created in the previous video. But now I will start my Llama 13B server. And it's B4 because I had to try this 4 times to make it actually work. So I'm using the B3 8x large instance type for this. And for this one, I didn't use the PyTorch version of the AMI because for some reason it wasn't available. So I just installed basic Ubuntu on there, and then I had to install CUDA. And I'll have a separate video on how you can do that. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see that one. But now I have to go to my volumes, and I have a separate volume for the Llama 2 models because I want to change servers often and I don't want to have to download the models on each of the servers. So I just have a separate volume for that. So I will detach this volume and then I will attach it to the 13B model instance. All right, I have now connected to the new instance. So let me cd into my Llama 2 Flask API and let me run the API, but this time with the model 13B chat. And then we have to wait for about 100 seconds for this thing to boot up. Now, like I said, you need 2 GPUs for Llama 13B to work. And you need around 16 gigs at least of memory per GPU. Now, this particular server has 4 GPUs and each of them has 16 gigs of memory. And sometimes that is not enough. It still fails. So really, you should try to find a server that has like 32 gigs of memory per GPU. But those seem to be very expensive. And they actually have one in the P3 instance type, but it has like 8 GPUs. So it is unnecessary. I just want 2 GPUs with 32 gigs each. But let's see if it works this time. All right, and our API is now up and running, and it in fact took 200 seconds this time. Now it usually takes like 20 seconds the next time you run it. I guess it caches something somewhere. But let's now try it, and let's see if it can write better code than the 7B model. So let's copy the exact same prompts. So let's get a new chat, and let's say write a Python script that prints out a specified number of Fibonacci numbers. Now with this model, it takes a little bit longer to get the response. So that took maybe, 20 seconds. And this time we did a very cool approach, which I think will actually work. So we have a function, Fibonacci, that takes a number. And if the number is less than or equal to 1, we return the number. Otherwise, we return Fibonacci of the n-1 plus Fibonacci of the n-2. Now, I feel like it is going to work, but this will calculate the nth Fibonacci number. It will not print out 5, 8, 13. So in fact, here it says, adds the results together to return the nth Fibonacci number. So you might say that the 13B model is worse than the 7B model. But let's see now if I do code fib.py and I paste this code in here. And let's run this. So python 3 fib.py. So it returns 5. What if I do 15? Well, I don't actually know what is the 15th Fibonacci number. So maybe I can do for I in range 15. We are going to print the ith Fibonacci number. So let's see if this looks correct. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. Okay, so I think it works. It just returns the nth number. But this is really cool. I wouldn't have figured this out myself, although it looks very simple. So let's see if we can actually fix its mistake. That returns only the nth number. I want a list of all the numbers. You're right. To get a list of all the Fibonacci numbers up to, and we ran out of the context window of this thing. So let's try with PHP. So I will again say this, but I will say PHP script, and let's see if it can do it. Okay, we got again a very interesting answer. So it says, hello, I'd be happy to help you with your question. However, I would like to point out that the question as stated does not make sense, as it does not specify what the Fibonacci numbers should be printed for. Additionally, it is not clear what the purpose of the script should be. What? And again we get this, please keep in mind that I strive to provide socially unbiased and positive responses that are free of harmful, unethical, racist, sexist, toxic, dangerous or illegal content. Well, I don't think Fibonacci numbers are any of these things. So let's see, in fact, does this system message help something? So if we copy this one, and I must give credit to this person who wrote this actual prompt, and I am going to go to my ChatGPT and I will change the settings to include this system message. And let's try this again. So I'll copy this prompt again and let's do this now. Now, of course, it might answer properly like every other time. So this is not really a definitive answer if it now gives the correct response. But yes, we got some code. So now we have a number of how many numbers we want to print, and the previous number and the current number. And then we just loop through and we set the previous to the current and the current to previous plus current. Okay, now it's not a function, but I didn't ask for a function. I asked for a script. So let's do this and let's see if it works. So I'll replace my old fib.php and let's run it. Fib.php. And in fact, it works. But we don't have the first two because they were up here already. But still, I would call this a pass. So let's try one more time with Python. Write a Python script. Now, I probably should explain more clearly that I want function and that it prints out all of the numbers. So again, we got the same thing. So obviously, this is going to work. Except it still only prints the nth number. And if we would try this with ChatGPT, then I am sure it will do it properly. So let's paste this in here and let's see the master at work. What? Okay, that's a very complicated code. So, okay, generate Fibonacci, which starts with 0 and 1. And while we have less than n Fibonacci numbers, we calculate the next number and add it to that. Okay, and then we have a separate one for print Fibonacci, which even has error handling. And then we generate the Fibonacci numbers and then we print them. And then we have this one. If name is main, then we are going to try to do this and we are catching a value error. So let's verify that this works too. So if I go to code fibgpt.py and I paste this in here, then can I just run this python 3 fibgpt.py? Okay, it actually asks for the input. So I want to print 6 numbers. And here we have all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so Llama is not quite as good as ChatGPT. Now again, this is just the 13B model. I have yet to try the 70B model. because it needs so much resources, but I will try it later. Now, I'm really interested in the function calling. Now, in the previous video, I tried to make the 7B model call some functions, kind of like the ChatGPT API. And it kind of worked, but it screwed up the JSON format often. And then we ran into the censorship issues. So let's now try with the 13B model, if that is going to work better. Now, I have lost my prompt already, but I said something like this. Always answer with the following JSON format. And then I will add here a name, which will be a function name, and arguments, which will be a JSON string of the arguments and their values. And I might say something like a JSONified Python dictionary of the arguments and their value. Don't add any other text to your response, only JSON. Use the most relevant function name and arguments based on the prompt. Let's try. And then I will add here an example. You have the following function: write file, file name, content. And then I will say, write, this is a test to test.txt. And let's see how it answers. Write file, arguments, file name, test.txt, content, this is a test. So in fact, this is exactly proper. So let's see if we can do something else. So last time I said, write, my name is John, into info.txt. And it refused because John is personal information and you are not allowed to write personal information into files. But now we actually did it. And I think this JSON format is correct. Now, in fact, it did not provide this as a JSON string. And actually, now that I think of it, it doesn't really make sense. It should provide it this way, because in the ChatGPT API, the arguments are just a string of JSON. But the reason is that the ChatGPT API actually returns this thing as an actual dictionary. But then the arguments are generated by ChatGPT, and that is just a JSON string. But this would work. We could just parse this into a Python dictionary and then just get it automatically. So what if I say, write a hello world program in C? And, okay, now it starts to hallucinate stuff. So, in fact, this kind of makes sense. I should fix my prompt, because this is, in fact, the function you should call in C with format being hello world. But that is not exactly what I meant. So I might change my prompt, and I might add something like, you have the following function. Let's say functions. You can only call these functions, and you must use all the arguments for the functions. So let's add write file, let's add read file, and let's add something like get current weather. And let's add here like location. And we might, in fact, put this as the system message. And I will change this to just say a dictionary of the arguments with their names and values. And I'll remove, let's try from here. And what if I, in fact, put this as the system message? So let me do that. Let me go to settings, and I will change this one. And I have to escape these ones. And then if I just say this in a new chat, then if the system message has enough effect, then this should work. Okay, name, write file, arguments, file name, test.txt, content, this is a test. Okay, that actually works. Write the current weather into weather.txt. And now what it should do is first call get current weather, and then in the next one it should call write. But it does not do that. It thinks that it can call get current weather in the content. And I have some problems here with the formatting because the underscores make it italic. But let's do one more change. You can only call one function at a time. If you need to run multiple functions to get their responses, forward them back to back in separate messages. Let's do that. And let's try this out. New chat, and write this little test to test.text, and it works. And then I will say, write the current weather in Boston. I should have added that before, the location, into weather.text. Okay, so again, it thinks that it can do this. So you probably could make it work, but you would need a little bit more time to do it. Perhaps I will do that in a future video. But that is going to be it for today's video. If you want to set up your own EC2 instance with Llama and then have an API there that is compatible with the OpenAI API, then you can try out my Llama 2 Flask API repository on GitHub. And you can check my previous video where I actually installed the EC2 instance and created the API. Now, I have made some updates to the API, like I said, because it didn't actually work on the larger models, but now it works. So let me know in the comments, what should I do with the Llama 2 model next? And I will see you in the next one.